They laughed when she first stepped onto the dusty field, the weight of her grandfather's rifle nearly too big for her shoulders. To the crowd, it was a ridiculous sight, a thin, sunburned farm girl with mud on her boots and freckles across her nose, trying to hold her own in a place where only men had earned respect. The laughter wasn't soft or playful. It was sharp, mocking, and laced with disbelief, like knives thrown from every corner of the gathering. They didn't see her as a competitor. They saw her as entertainment, someone destined to fail before she even began. But deep inside her chest, beneath the sting of their jeers, Clara carried a fire that no one could extinguish. What they didn't know was that her first shot would one day silence them all. And before I continue with this incredible journey, let me pause for just a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the courage of people who rise against the odds, please like this video, share it with someone who might need hope today, and subscribe to Royal Stories for more heart-moving tales. Your support means the world, and it helps us keep sharing stories that inspire. Clara grew up in the raw heart of farmland, where the seasons ruled like kings and queens. The summers burned golden and endless, the winters bit with icy teeth, and the spring rains drummed against the old tin roof of their farmhouse like an unrelenting song. Her father, Henry, was a man shaped by the land itself. His skin bore the deep tan of years under the sun, and his hands were thick with calluses, hands that spoke of work that never seemed to end. Clara adored him, though she could see the shadows in his eyes. Those shadows were born the day her mother passed away. Clara was just 7 when illness swept through the house like a thief in the night, and by the time the dawn came, her mother was gone, leaving behind a silence that clung to every room. From that moment, childhood was no longer a luxury Clara could afford. She rose before the rooster, stirred pots of porridge on the stove, and hauled buckets of water from the well. Her small arms learned to lift feed sacks, and her little legs trudged through mud to gather eggs. She became her father's helper, the farm's caretaker, and the quiet glue that held their world together. There were times when loneliness crept into her bones, when she lay awake at night staring at the ceiling, wishing for a soft hand to tuck her in or a lullaby to chase away the dark. But Clara did not break. Instead, she grew resilient. She wore her grief like armor, though it weighed heavy on her shoulders. One object, however, carried her through those hollow days: the rifle that hung above the fireplace. It was a relic of her grandfather, a man Clara had never met but had heard endless stories about. He had been a legend in their county, known for his precision, a marksman who could split a coin in half from 30 paces. Her father would tell stories of hunts where the old man never missed, of county fairs where people would gather just to watch him shoot. For Clara, the rifle was more than wood and steel. It was a connection to the family she had lost, and a bridge to the strength she desperately needed. At first, Henry hesitated to teach her. He thought the rifle was too heavy, the recoil too rough, the discipline too demanding. But Clara was stubborn. She begged and pleaded until one quiet Sunday afternoon, he gave in. He carried the rifle out to the field, set up empty cans along the fence, and showed her how to hold it. Her hands were small, her shoulders narrow, and when she fired her first shot, the recoil startled her so much that she tumbled backward into the dirt. She laughed through the sting in her shoulder, though, and asked for another turn. That was the beginning. Week by week, Clara returned to the fence posts. At first, her bullets went wide, sometimes not even grazing the cans, but Henry noticed something unusual in her. The way she focused, how she would narrow her eyes and breathe slow, how she treated each shot as though the world depended on it. Most children grew impatient, frustrated by failure. Clara did not. She studied, she adjusted, and slowly, her bullets began to find their mark. By the time she was 12, she could line up jars across the field and break every single one. By 14, she had surpassed her father's skill. It was around then that whispers began. Neighbors who passed the farm would hear the crack of shots ringing out across the fields and would tell stories of a girl who could outshoot grown men. At first, the tales were told with a kind of amused disbelief, as though she were a novelty, a child with a lucky aim. But as word spread, the whispers hardened into something else: skepticism. Some laughed at the idea of a girl with a rifle, dismissing it as fanciful gossip. Others scoffed more cruelly, insisting that if she truly could shoot, it was nothing more than a parlor trick. Clara heard the whispers. She felt the sting of being underestimated, but she did not let it stop her. Her father, though proud, carried worry deep in his chest. He had lived long enough to know how unkind the world could be to a girl who'd to step into spaces where she did not belong. He feared the ridicule, the cold stares, the mocking laughter. When Clara told him she wanted to enter the county shooting championship, he fell silent. He knew she was capable, but he also knew the cruelty of crowds. They won't be kind. He told her softly one night as they sat by the fireplace. Clara only lifted her chin and answered, "I don't need them to be kind. I just need to prove I belong." That year, she worked harder than ever. The farm still demanded her every dawn and dusk, but between the chores, Clara carved out moments for practice. She studied the wind as it whispered across the wheat fields, learned how to account for the shift of air that could pull a bullet off course. She trained her body to hold steady. Even when her arms ached or her breath came in gasps, she would balance coins on her rifle barrel and hold still until they didn't move. Her hands grew calloused, her shoulders strong, and her aim unshakable. On nights when exhaustion threatened to break her, Clara would look at the rifle and remember her mother's words. Words she swore she could still hear in the quiet. Life isn't about avoiding storms. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Those words carried her through every setback, every doubt. And when the county fair banners went up, announcing the championship, Clara signed her name without hesitation. The laughter began the moment her name appeared on the list, the farmer's daughter. The little girl with the braid. The one who thought she could stand where men had stood for decades. They chuckled in the taverns, whispered in the church pews, and shook their heads on front porches. But Clara heard it all and carried it like fuel. The more they doubted her, the more determined she became. She was not entering to amuse them. She was entering to prove, to herself, to her father, and to the mother who watched from beyond, that she was more than they believed. And so, on the morning of the championship, Clara walked toward the dusty field with her grandfather's rifle strapped across her back, her boots worn, her braid tight, and her heart pounding like a drum. The sun was rising, the air heavy with expectation, and the mocking laughter that met her only steeled her resolve. She did not flinch. She did not bow her head. She simply stepped forward, ready.